Well, good day. Welcome to Martalks. I'm Daryl Rosenstein, your host. Martalks, we discuss contemporary issues impacting the global e-commerce economy. And today we're going to be speaking with Brian Kotlyar of Hightouch, a CDP provider. One of the biggest issues impacting a lot of merchants online is data. How do they activate their data? How do they use their data? How do they put their data in a form that is usable? And one of the best solutions for that has become CDP, which provides an ability to centralize all data for driving hyper-personalization. And we're going to get into that. But before we do, Brian, you're actually a startup addict. I think you got a problem and you're not trying to solve it. So, can you share a little bit about why it is you keep going back to the well and building things from scratch?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first, thanks for having me, Daryl. I'm excited to talk to you today. Yeah, I mean, addict's probably the right word because it's very fun, it's energizing, it's exciting, but it's got its dark days too. So it's probably the right framing. And I think the reason I got into this business, the reason I stay in this business, is like I look at I think about this from the kind of an economic perspective. It's really exciting to me to be part of a sector of the economy that creates. Like I don't like the idea. Maybe it's because my parents are from the Soviet Union or something, but I don't like the idea of like a zero sum game. The beauty of startups is you can win, you can create wealth for yourself, you can create wealth for the world without in an additive way. And I think startups are so exciting when we create new ideas, we create new wealth and new capabilities for the broader economy. And I want to be part of that. And if I take home a little bit extra dough on the side because of it, I'm not complaining. But also if we can, help literally, and I've been able to do, I think, with some of the work I've done, help millions of people make their lives easier, make their business grow faster. That's what we're here to do. So if you're going to work, may as well be on something like that, I think.
I'd have to say adding value to millions of customers is probably a good reason to get up in the morning. And hopefully we continue to do that. You have actually had a front row seat on a couple of unicorns, some big successes, one being Sprinkler that actually went through an IPO. And you actually were part of the team that literally rescued and resuscitated New Relic that was pretty moribund before you came on board and created new awareness and a campaign to really resuscitate that brand. Can you share a bit about why those two firms achieved that unicorn status and had such amazing growth?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Um, look, I think they're very different companies in many ways, but the commonality I would say between them is like uh, a certain degree of like customer obsession, which then would manifest in product and support to the customers that is like really like tangible. If you were a customer of Sprinkler, I was there, and since then, that like we built that thing based specifically on what was actually going on in the marketing teams and the customer service teams and the customer experience teams of the biggest brands in the world that had the biggest consumer audiences in the world. And we would just actually go talk to them, and they would say, I need to be able to do X, Y, or Z on Snapchat or on TikTok. And I have these legal challenges. I have these content challenges. I have these analytics challenges. And we would just say, okay, we'll fix it. And we would build the product that would solve the problem. Um, and we wouldn't stop until we were done. And like Raji, the CEO of Sprinkler, has this famous thing that always stuck with me that he would always say to me and the broader group, which is there's only three things that matter here. We need the world's best product, we need the world's happiest customers, and there is no third thing. And that's how we would approach it. And the common thread to New Relic is New Relic kind of lost its path a little bit, I would say, when we lost some of that fit and alignment to the customer. Our pricing model kind of drifted away from the way people wanted to buy. Our core product kind of drifted away from the broader adoption of the cloud and the move toward AWS and Azure and things like that. And that let customer competitors kind of sneak in and steal a lot of our mojo. And I think the big insight that turned the business around was that kind of bucket of cold water when the growth just kind of dried up. We stopped growing, and this realization that the cause of that was that we weren't charging for the right value. We weren't making the experience of using the product in this kind of modern cloud environment easy enough and kind of joyful enough. And we brought those two things back to the center of the business. Changed our pricing to a consumption value based pricing, changed our product UI, changed how people would adopt and use the product to match with what best product, happiest customers kind of thinking, and lo and behold, growth resumed. So there's a lot to it. It's harder than it sounds, but like if you really want to boil it down to those, there's only three things, and actually there's only two.
I love that actual performance that George Carlin gave around the 10 commandments that he distilled down to one. Just do your very best, your very, very best to be cool to people. And I think that that's incredibly true within the software industry. There's so many solutions out there, and being able to adapt yours to be the best and being aware that customers have choices and actively competing by providing the best value has to be at the core. You can't be in love with your baby if somebody tells you it's ugly. You got to get a new set of clothes. But it sounds like they figured that out. Obviously, getting to $1 billion valuation is no small feat, and most startups fail. So there you go. You joined Sprinkler actually through an acquisition, and that's often a rocky path for a smaller company that's acquired by a larger one. What do you think that they did right when they acquired Dachis, and what, if anything, might have been improved?
Well, it's very interesting because the company that was acquired, Dachis Group, was actually in itself an acquirer. We bought 10 or 12 companies, and then we in turn were bought by Sprinkler, and we proceeded at Sprinkler to acquire another, I think, like 7 to 10 companies. So I got a lot of bites at this apple and saw a lot of different good and bad things about it. I think the essence of why the acquisition strategy has really worked well at Sprinkler is that so there's this kind of underlying principle of the company, which is that each acquisition that we did and have done, the idea was we would bring in the insights, bring in the wisdom, bring in the knowledge from these companies we were acquiring, but we would then essentially rebuild it in the form of Sprinkler. So it wasn't like it was company X brought to you by or company Y a whatever product. We made them like actually architecturally in the code base, just part of the core product. The benefit of that at a technology and a customer side of things is that it became really easy to adopt the new product. Like once you came to understand, oh, the thing that whatever, because we bought many companies, but whatever that new thing was, it wasn't like you logged in through a different user interface. It wasn't like you had to learn a whole new thing. It was just there to be used. And now we would kind of like, of course, bill you for it if you chose to use it. But the journey of adopting this new complementary technology was trivial because it was inherent in the product. And when you look at other acquisitions, like, not to pick on Salesforce, they're a great company, but like I remember in that particular category of social media stuff, Salesforce bought a bunch of companies that were our competitors. But like 6 years after they bought them, they still had different logins and different URLs that you would log into and different analytics consoles and different, it was like buying it didn't actually materially change the product in any way. It was just like the money went to a different checking account. And like that's not very customer centric a way of unifying software and unifying companies. So that's something I think that Sprinkler did and does really well. What I think we could have done better, and it's just hindsight's 2020. You learn these things. Is that I think that like sort of team integration is something we didn't spend enough time on, and so unfortunately the actual process of being consumed by this larger organization wasn't always very fun for a lot of the people that went through it, and many of them kind of chose to leave the business because like, oh, this is hard. I have to learn all this new stuff. I have to adapt to this whole new culture. I have to work in all these new ways, and I think we didn't always do a very good job of making that easy for people. And so when I think about the customer side, it was actually pretty good. But when I think about the employee side and the institutional knowledge that those people had and all those things, I think we probably could have done a better job.
Well, I was going to bring up Salesforce because I a number of my clients were actually acquired by them, including Demandware, and yeah, they did not necessarily acquire solutions that integrated well with their products, and it was a completely different user interface. It was a completely different experience, and even the data feeds. You had duplication of databases, hence the need for CDPs to pull data out of the commerce cloud, the marketing cloud, the service cloud, the finance cloud, and so on and so forth. It sounds like obviously Sprinkler did a far better job of taking these technologies and building them into one another, so that they were modular as opposed to separate instances of solutions that required a whole new training, a whole new methodology, whole new workflows and everything, which is, again, great acquisition strategy. Well done on the part of the executive team at Sprinkler. Now, to go to our topic of the day, customer data, you are on a mission to free marketers from the shackles of data, which I love that. That's a great term. Can you explain what you see as holding them back?
Yeah. So I mean, the kind of my nutshell comment on this that I always kind of share is that like I think I do not think we really have a data abundance problem. I think we have ample information, generally speaking, to be able to do really sophisticated marketing, really thoughtful offer strategies, really interesting modeling about lifetime value and what's the next logical purchase. I honestly believe most organizations beyond like a pretty, even a basic level of maturity with all the tools and capabilities we have today, the data's there. The problem is we don't use it for anything. Um, and so the question is why? If we could be doing all these rich, interesting things, but we don't, is it because we're dumb? No, I don't think people are dumb. Is it because we're lazy? No, I don't think people are lazy. Is it because the tools stink? No, I don't think it's because, like, whatever, HubSpot or Klaviyo or whatever stink. I don't think that's why. What I actually think is the problem is this kind of this last mile issue. It's getting all that data organized and into the hands of marketers to be able to do the things that they'd like to do. And you go talk to these people. I've lived this as a marketer for many years, and like you say, okay, I just want to personalize this variable in this email to these people who abandoned cart. And you're like, okay, well, write up your engineering ticket, set up your brief, meet with the team, get their feedback, submit it again, run it, test it, proof of concept, whatever. It's like, guys, I'm just trying to send an email for Christmas. It's now Valentine's Day, and so what I think is that the big opportunity now is about harnessing all that data. And that's why I left my past role to enter the role I'm in now, because I saw finally, after years and years and years of being the blocked marketer who was still doing their Christmas promotions on Valentine's Day, that there was actually a simpler, more elegant solution. And so to me, it's kind of like the writing's on the wall. We know what the future is going to look like. So why don't I help make usher in that future, and that's what I've done. I don't know if I've answered your question, but that's kind of the essence of it.
So, you spend a great deal of time as an analyst, evaluating a variety of solutions, and you really develop that muscle in terms of looking at the alternatives that clients have. But, from your perspective, what do you see lacking out there in the solutions that are limiting the ability of marketers to both access and activate their data to drive hyper personalization?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the way to kind of think about this is in sort of two parts. There's sort of like I don't know what you want to call it, like an insight problem and then an activation problem. So on the insight side, we think about this, and I think about this a lot in the sense of audiences. You want to look at this vast array of consumer data you've got, whether it's clicks on an e-commerce store or point of sale information in a retail or whatever, and you want to kind of group it into audiences of people that you can kind of take action upon. So like people who recently were on the website looking at these kinds of products but haven't bought, people with that same attribute but that have high lifetime value characteristics, people with that same attribute that previously bought something in store or whatever. Those kind of groupings become the audiences that you need to treat, and getting that information kind of organized and accessible to a marketer isn't trivial. It's that data tends to be scattered all over the place. You have to have a little bit of an insight to navigate and even come up with the ideas of what the audiences should be. And so the first thing is how we make that as easy as possible. You shouldn't have to go have a whole analytics project to get an audience. You should be able to sit with a piece of paper and a pencil or an iPad or whatever, and as a marketer, think about your business, think about those opportunities. Like, what if I could communicate an offer to my high value customer? What might that offer be? And you should be able to go do that without a big complicated workflow. So that's step one of the problem. Step two is now, okay, I know what I want. I have found that data. The data is available to me. Now I need to move it to all the places where I actually have surface area with my customer. And that's also not trivial because you've got your CRM, you've got your email technology, you've got your SMS, you've got your CMS, all the 3-letter acronyms we can invent. And you want that audience to be the same across all of them. You know, you don't want to do a one-off to Facebook, a one-off, one-off, one-off. You want that information to percolate everywhere it needs to go, so that you can take action comprehensively on this group. And that's not easy either. You need all these custom data pipelines that are always breaking. All the data is not functioning correctly. It's not up to date the same in all different spots. And so, if you can solve this problem, though, really incredible things start to happen. I'll give you just a really quick example. We have a customer called cars.com, online site that helps people matchmake between cars they could buy and cars they might want. And they, of course, have been sending abandoned cart emails for ages to people, since they've had emails available. But they didn't work very well. And so what they figured out was, okay, the audiencing we need to figure out is people with good credit scores who can actually afford the car that they're looking for, and then match them up to the credit organization that's going to fund the loan. And so what if we sent them, instead of here's a bunch of Ford trucks, what if we send them, here's a bunch of Ford trucks you can afford with an offer ready to go based on your credit score that you can action right now. And they sent it moments after you abandoned cart of looking at those trucks. They did this project, they did this work, and they saw a massive lift worth millions of dollars of top line revenue in their abandoned cart emails because of this. And so it's this transition from really simple audiences, people who abandoned, to really thoughtful audience-based offers. People who abandoned, give them the right thing at the right time in the right moment, and it transforms your funnel. And this one email is worth millions of dollars a year to them. And it's only the first of the emails they're going to do. And so you start to kind of get your juices flowing about what's possible when you merge all this interesting audience data and then go actually do something with it.
Well, whoever keeps sending me the offers for a new Lamborghini Murcielago, I mean, thank you very much. I really appreciate it, but it's not quite my price point. But love the lines, and the color is just rocking. You had me dialed with orange. You had me.
Your credit score must be better than mine because I don't get those offers.
I think that they have incorrect data. I really do. I might have inserted it into the internet, but whatever. I look at fancy things. I like them. So Hightouch has actually developed a very interesting product to drive that value. And you coined the term composable CDP. What exactly is Hightouch's approach that you coined that term, and what does it mean?
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, in a nutshell, so that workflow I just described, figure out the audience, do the offer. That's possible to do really manually. Then there was this innovation of a customer data platform. The idea was, okay, well, if that's possible really manually, let's buy some software that makes it a little bit easier. And that's kind of the CDP industry that emerged over the last decade or so. The next evolution of that category is what we call the composable CDP. And the essence of it is that, unfortunately, that while the kind of traditional CDPs of the last 10 years, they actually can work. They can. Usually they do not. I think Forrester published some data like 90% plus of those implementations people aren't happy with. Gartner published some data that said more than half of the time the buyer regrets having bought it. Like there's something amiss with this category of software that on paper should work, but in real life doesn't. And what it really boils down to, what we've uncovered and where this kind of composable idea comes in, is that the problem with this traditional CDP approach is it's a very heavy piece of software. You need to instrument a lot of data collection. It takes months. You need to set up a whole new set of data storage. It takes months. You need to understand what's going on in that system. It takes months. And at the end of the day, it's not that easy to use. And so it's not that on paper this is a bad category. It's that in practice, you go to actually use it and you wake up one day and you're like, this is really expensive. It's been really hard to set up. and we're just not happy. And so the composable idea is it's a reaction to that. It's saying, why is this so hard? Well, if you look at what's so difficult about this, there's the collection and data storage problem. Well, what if there was a magical other system that you already have that's already collecting all this data and already stores it all? Does that exist? Actually, it does. It's not magic. It's called the data warehouse. Most of these companies already have this. Most of these companies already have all the data in it. So instead of setting up a whole separate parallel thing, just use what you have. It's a much more pragmatic solve. Go to the place it already is and use it. And Hightouch, the composable idea, the Hightouch product, and we have competitors, they have the same idea. We think we're better, but that's my biased take. The idea is let's just sit on top of the data you've got and very pragmatically solve the use case you want now, today, not in 6 months. And so we bring this kind of simple audiencing that I was just talking about and this simple data activation, just get the data where it needs to be, much more quickly and cheaply and usably than these other more traditional approaches or even the old approach of doing it all custom by leveraging the resources you've got. You already have an email tool, great, we'll work with it. You already have a database, great, we'll work with it. We're just going to give the tools to your marketers and your data teams and off you go. And so you get this, the essence of the composable thing is like, it's just a more pragmatic solve. The time to value is crazy because you're using resources you've got. And the flexibility it represents, it matches your business. It doesn't make you adopt all the patterns and behaviors that the Salesforce CDP team want you to follow, or the Twilio CDP team want you to follow, or the Adobe CDP want you to follow. No, you just use your data and your way of working. And so customers, once they move off of the other way to the new way, they don't go back. And so again, this is kind of where I kind of have religion on this. It's like, I want you to buy our solve. I really do. But I think that this is bigger than us. There's just a different, better way to work now, which is this kind of warehouse-centric approach. And I think everyone's going to be doing it sooner rather than later because I'm watching it happen. People are just abandoning the old way and going the new way. Hopefully they choose us, but even if not, like that's kind of the way of the world, it seems.
Well, you say you've got the religion, and you've also said you're a marketer. You're not just a marketer; you're a client. So you put this stuff in practice. You've actually utilized the various solutions that are out there, and seen the efficacy of the new model in terms of decreased spend. Let's talk about one of the biggest wastes of money that any advertiser experiences. And what is it specifically when we're talking about data suppression that a CDP allows you to avoid?
Sure. I mean, you landed on one of my most frustrating things and things I'm most passionate about because like I just hate waste, Like I think about all the money we waste. I'm like, that's people's jobs we could have hired. That's money we could have saved. That's whatever shareholder value we could have returned. It just drives me nuts. And so the simple idea here is that, we've all experienced it as customers where, you visit e-commerce store of some kind, you look at a product, and then for the next Lord knows, months, sometimes years. I have a friend, he was joking with me. He's been getting the same electric guitar ad for literally like 4 years from this one vendor that he looked at and bought the guitar 4 years ago. Still getting the ad. And that's the consumer side of bad suppression. It's marketing a product to somebody who cannot buy it or has already bought it long after they've moved on in their life cycle and their buying process. And all those impressions are just money in the hands in the pocket of Facebook and various display ad networks. And as a marketer, like my goal isn't to make Facebook rich. My goal is to make my company rich, And yet we all do this. And so suppression, basic idea is you take lists of people who you should not be advertising to, and you put them into your ad audience targeting with sort of a do not market kind of thing. It's like, do not show them this ad anymore. And it's one of the most simple hacks you can do to just unlock huge savings and huge ROI. Because I'll give you an example. We work with a cable company. They have this concept of a household. And the idea is there's certain households they cannot market because their fiber optics and their cable doesn't go to those houses, or they already have the product. But for years, they've been showing ads to households that they can't service. They realized this. They set up a suppression audience for those households. And one suppression is worth $3 million a year to them. Like think about that. One simple project with a $3 million a year ROI, all the things that can unlock and all the things that can do. And that's just one audience. And so then it gets really exciting because now, okay, great, suppress people who have bought. What if you could also now sell them new things that they should buy? Because you're no longer showing them the electric guitar that they don't need. Show them the amplifier they do. Show them the strings that they do. Show them the repair contract or the warranty that they might want. Or in the cable company thing, show them a contract for HBO because they've got internet or whatever. So you start by removing all the waste. That goes right to your bottom line. And then you start to be able to add in new top line by doing more new audiencing that's more sophisticated and more thoughtful. And it's just like, it's kind of a no-brainer, but the truth is people don't do it because getting that audience and getting it where it needs to be is a pain in the butt. You got to get the list, put it in the spreadsheet, download the spreadsheet, upload the spreadsheet. And you need to do this like every minute of every day forever. Because every moment that your audiences are out of date, you have new people in the audience that should be suppressed that are not, that is creating waste. So I know companies that they do a suppression refresh once a month. That means every day the list of people who shouldn't be getting ads is growing until on day 29, you're dealing with a list of tens of thousands of people that you're wasting ad money on. And then it's over once you upload the suppression list. Why not just upload the suppression list every minute? Well, with Hightouch, you can't. It's trivial. It's the first thing every customer does. We get mad at them if they don't. And so, yeah, so I don't know. You can see I'm passionate about this because it just drives me nuts.
Well, not to place the blame on Birkenstocks, but I'm not a fan. It's a fine shoe, I'm sure, for folks that like that sort of thing. And I've been getting stalked by Birkenstocks for 3 months now, and it's kind of creepy. Yes, I have feet, but no, I don't want to wear Birkenstocks. So, can somebody turn that off? I think Birkenstocks might need to invest in the CDP. Well, let's shift gears here because my clients by and large are startups, and the folks that I place go into these startups to create value and to risk their careers in many cases on new ideas, new values, new ways of approaching things. And you have been in the position to hire hundreds of these aspiring executives throughout your career. Can you tell me a little bit about how you've made people successful personally in a startup environment that may or may not have made it?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the truth is that most startups don't, as you alluded to earlier in the call. And that's just the truth. We can't hide from that. And so I think it's a really astute question because you need to get more out of the experience than the expectation of maybe through a combination of skill and luck being a part of Sprinkler or being a part of New Relic or being a part of another company I work for, Intercom, or maybe Hightouch if all goes well. If you're banking on the whole purpose here in the startup is to get an IPO, well, most companies don't. And so you need to, as a leader, give more than that, and as a employee and a participant, you need to get more than that. And so the thing I think about a lot with folks is what's special about these environments, and what's special is it's the opportunity to learn and practice. And I think both are critical. I talk a lot with the team about this idea of active practice. There's passive learning, which you can get by listening to podcasts or reading blog posts or reading books or whatever, but that only gets you so far. That might give you some conceptual knowledge, but mastery and really special skill development comes from the doing. And startups are really interesting because there's so much to do that anyone who's willing to do will have the chance to practice. Like pretty much anyone in my company or the companies I've worked for in the past can say to me, hey, we don't do, I'll use an example, literally something working right now. We don't do very good training. And I'm like, yeah, I know, we're really busy. And they're like, well, I think we should. Like, okay, start. You don't get to do that at IBM. You don't get to do that at Apple. But you go to a startup and you can. And guess what? Now you have actual practical, active experience from training people that will last your whole career. And yeah, hopefully, maybe because you did the training, the company's more likely to IPO. But that wasn't the point. The point is you're better for it, and you bring that to your every future job every opportunity you'll ever have. And so I think that's what's special. That's what I try to bring to my teams, and that's what I try to do myself personally is just develop as a person. Because maybe I'm going to get rich off this, but Probably I won't, but hopefully I have some rich experiences and I'm a better person for it.
Well, when if you're going to give advice to someone who's thinking about joining a startup, there's so many questions to ask, so many unknowns. Where does one begin when one is evaluating whether or not you should go to work for a startup, and what questions you should be asking of that company during the interview process?
Sure. So I've got a framework that I use and kind of teach folks that I assist that I'll share that I think is pretty good for what it's worth. So my first question is always about market. I'm trying to understand, is the market uh, a big substantive one where there's an opportunity for a lot of wealth to be created? That's not always obvious because sometimes you have these like non-obvious products and that but generally speaking, it's like because the famous example of like you don't want to be the last person manufacturing buggy whips, like after the car's been invented. It's like doesn't matter how good you are at making buggy whips, no one's getting rich, right? So step one, are you selling the Model T or are you selling buggy whips? You have to have a point of view on that, and hopefully you can identify with some confidence that there's going to be a big opportunity for wealth to be created. If that's true, the next thing is okay, great, you can have big markets, but how many car companies came and went where Ford is still here, right? So can the company win? And the attributes of a company that can win is usually it's a function of their technology in the technology category and the team. And so you want to look at those attributes like, does this team have a product that can really win in this space? Does it create value? Do people buy it and stick with it? And there's many questions you'd ask there about, revenue retention and product adoption. There's a lot there that you can explore on the tech side. And then the team side is more interesting because, actually more important, I would say, because products become obsolete really quickly and features get copied really quickly in tech. There's very few, if any, durable moats that are possible amongst startups because people notice and they copy you. And so the durable attribute is the team, their ability to learn, their curiosity, their passion for the category, their passion for their customers, and their willingness to kind of grind and work. So you're looking at a team. Does it have a team composition that can win? So if you've got a great market, you've got a good technology today, and you've got a team that can stay on top of it and continue to execute, then my last thing is what's your role in all this? Will you have the opportunity to learn? Will you be better for it? Will you create a lot of value for the company and for yourself? And so like if you kind of work through those four things, if at the end of it you're like good market, good tech, good team, good role that fits what I want, probably a pretty good company. And the rest, the some amount of luck is going to be involved after that. But if you have those four things, you're already probably ahead of the game.
Well, even if you have those four things, people go into startups and they fail. And you've seen a lot of folks personally that you've hired, hopefully not too many, that have come on board and just been like fallen flat on their face because of the environment, the challenges, the dynamism, the time commitment, the uncertainty, the requirement for constant innovation and creation and self-direction. But what do you think are the most important qualities that somebody needs to have to be successful in a startup? And what qualities do you think do not bode well for someone being successful at a startup?
I mean, I think there's certain look, I've made a lot of bad hires. Uh, not so much necessarily because of them. Sometimes I think it's actually situational, but I've made a lot of mistakes. So I don't know. I say this humbly because I feel like I still don't have my batting average is not as high as I'd like it. Is, I guess, the point I'm trying to make. Uh, but look, what I would say is there's uh, the folks I notice, they have a combination of sort of drive to contribute, paired with the intelligence and curiosity to learn and find ways to apply that drive productively. They tend to be very coachable and like I'm not saying humble necessarily because arrogance is manageable, but coachable. They learn, they respect their peers, they take feedback well. Like you can be kind of confident but still coachable. Um, and then I think I may have said this already, but the adaptability is really important. And so what you're kind of looking for, in my experience, as you're interviewing, is you're trying to find like proven examples, and they don't have to be professional. They can be from somebody's personal life. In fact, I prefer a personal example of those attributes coming out, not just talk. Like, tell me a story about that captures how you were resilient in the face of a problem. Tell me a story of where you were doing something and didn't work and you changed, and what did you learn? And asking probing questions and seeking references that will validate these things. Um, and the thing, I was just talking with one of our managers the other day about this, is that if you don't know, keep asking questions, keep talking to the person. We're always in this rush to hire at startups because we're so desperate for help all the time. And it's like every week that goes by where somebody's not in the seat is a bad thing. It's like actually jeopardizing important stuff because we don't have fallbacks. Most people at these companies are one of one in their role. But it kind of doesn't matter. You need to spend the time to explore and really deeply understand if those attributes are present, because if you can validate that those are present, you've now got somebody that you're going to work with and achieve so much for years. So that extra 2 weeks to figure it out is trivial investment if you're going to work with them for the next 5 years and you're going to change the trajectory of the company. So yeah, that's kind of how I think about it.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said you'd made mistakes. And that is the opportunity that I think is most golden at a startup is you get to make mistakes. You're trying things out. You're experimenting. You're doing things for the first time. You're not going to get everything right. And that's good because the organization learns from that. You learn from that. You advance. You actually advance more rapidly through making mistakes that are calculated, that are measured than you would ever do by just staying the course. And in my experience, the folks that don't make it at startups just don't have that propensity to take risks, to expose themselves, to be wrong. They don't have that confidence to say, "Yep, I screwed up, made a mistake. This is what I learned." You got to be able to take risks. You've got to be comfortable with that. You've got to enjoy it. You've got to, it's like, well, let's see if this works. Let's wind this up and see if it works. And, being under someone like Brian Kotlyar, he'll reward that. And you'll learn, and everybody else will learn as well. And hopefully he doesn't put up the 15 mistakes you made in order right before he shares that message. So, Brian, any closing thoughts for us?
I guess just to close on this topic, I think you hit it really well at the end there. I think it's also incumbent on us as leaders to create an environment where people can make mistakes and learn. And I think that that's the magic. Somebody's willing to do that and take that risk, and you as a leader can create that space for them to do so and feel safe. Then really, I think anything is possible for anyone's career. And these businesses, they're tech companies, but most of it's human capital. Most of our money is spent on people, and so in the end, if you can do that, it is, you want to talk about a moat. That goes back to one of the best moats is just having the best people, and I think that that's something that I'm always striving to do, and I think some of the advice that you just shared will hopefully help others.
Well, I appreciate you joining us today, Brian. It's been an absolute pleasure. And Brian Kotlyar of Hightouch is actively hiring. So please join his team and make as many mistakes as possible. Really screw it up. I mean, I encourage you. Just go nuts and see what happens, right?
That's right. Come on the team, and we'll have some fun together.
Fantastic. Thanks again, Brian.
Thank you, Daryl.
Thanks for listening to Martalks. Please leave a review and a rating on your platform of choice. We're available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all major podcast platforms. To find out more about how the Rosenstein Group can help you find the right leaders for your client development teams in martech and e-commerce, please visit our website, rosensteingroup.com.